get rocking on our search here. So if I right click inspect on this, you have a div with the class of search. Inside of that, we have an input, and then we have a hidden div that has search results inside of it. So what we want to do is open up our public folder, open up our JavaScript folder, and then in our modules, we're going to make a new file called type ahead capital A.js. Then inside of that, we're going to import a library called Axios. Const Axios equals require Axios. And Axios is a library, sort of like Fetch built into the browser, but with some sane defaults and some nice ability to cancel requests if you ever want to implement something like that. Then we're going to make a function called type ahead, which will take in the search box, and it's going to be exported from this file. Good. Then we'll open up our main delicious.app and we will import that. Import, we'll put it above here. Import type ahead from modules type. Then we will run it. We'll say type ahead and we will pass it $.search. Good. So let's see if it worked. We'll go inside of our type ahead and just console log search. Make sure that everything is up and running before we start writing some real code. When I refresh, you get a div with a class of search. Good. So essentially how this is going to work is we are going to listen for when somebody types into this box here. And when somebody types into this box, we are going to hit our API endpoint with the value that's typed into that box, and then wait for the results to come back, and then we can make some drop down value here. So let's do the very basics, which is when somebody types in the box, let's console log what they typed. Delete this. First thing we want to do is say if there is no search, then we are just going to return. And what that will do is if for whatever reason the search is not on the page, then we don't want to run this function at all. And that will stop any of these cannot find query selector of, et cetera, et cetera. So first thing we need is we need the input and we need the results. So what we do here is you say const search input is equal to, we'll take our search and we will query selector inside of that for our input with the name of search. Then we also need our results div. Search underscore results. Good. So we have our two pieces of information that we're looking for here. Let's quickly console log them. Search input and search results. Let's double check that we have those values on page load. There's our input. There's our results. It's 0 pixels high because we are not showing anything in it right now. Good. Okay, then what we need to do is listen for an input event on that search. So we'll say search input on input. And again, this is on as just a shortcut in Bling.js for add event listener, but we are just using on because we are cool. And when the input function runs, we are going to run this callback, which in here, we'll just console log this dot value. So once you type COFFEE, good. So we are listening for an input event on the search input. When that happens, we are using this dot value, which will give us the actual value of here. Good. What we do want to do is immediately, if there is no value inside of that, we just want to hide the search results and return. Because, and let's put a little comment, if there is no value, quit it. So if somebody is typing in here and then they backspace it all, we should get rid of any search results that we do have, as well as stop this thing from running because there's nothing to search for. So how do we do that? We take our search results and we grab the style.display property and we set that to none, which will hide it. And then we also return, which will stop. Okay, good. Then what we want to do is show the search results. So search results.style.display equals, we want to make it block. So if it was hidden from before, we want to now make it block. And then we use Axios to hit our endpoint. So Axios.get. Now, what is our URL? /API/search. And then the query parameter is going to be set to this dot value. Then we chain a dot then on the end, which gives us our response. And let's just do a quick console log response.data. So if I type C, we get an empty array. O, F, F, E, E, and woohoo! As soon as I did my first letter, you see that these are all empty coming back. But as soon as I hit coffee, it comes back with 3 objects from our actual API. Very good. I'm really happy with that. So we have our response.data coming back to us. Then we, inside of here, we'll say if there is any data that has come back, so response.data.length, then we will console.log. There is something to show. So now we're going to see anything, COFFEE. And then as soon as we hit the coffee, the data comes back and says, yes, there actually are some results for coffee. Let's go ahead and do that. So at this point, we need to start making some results HTML to actually display to our users. Let me open up the actual finished version to show you kind of what we're going for here. This is our finished version here. So say coffee. You see how as I type COFFEE, there's nothing. And as soon as I hit coffee, it's going to start showing us the results here. And I can use my arrow keys to go up and down to all the different versions that we have. And when I hit enter, it's going to bring me to the actual URL for that one. Good. So rather than make the HTML right inside of this function, because it's getting a little bit hairy, I'm going to go to the top here, and I'm going to make a second function that's called search results HTML. So it's a function, search results HTML. It's going to take in an array of stores, and it's going to return to us some HTML. Now, if you've taken either my ES6 or my JavaScript 30 course, you'll be fairly familiar with this. We're just going to return these stores, and we're going to map over each store. And from that, we are going to return backticks. And each of those stores has a with a class of search __ result singular. And the href is going to be equal to /stores / the store dot slug. Good. And inside of that, we're going to give ourselves a strong tag, which has the store dot name inside of it. Alternatively, you can also give yourself a paragraph tag, which has the store dot description inside of it. But I'm going to leave that off for now because I think it clutters up our search a little bit too much. So this search results HTML is now a nice little function that we can use to map over each stores, return some HTML for each one, and then on the end of this one, we can call .join because this map is going to return to us an array, and we really just want a string here. Let me show you what it looks like without it. So we'll go down here, and I'll say const HTML equals search results HTML response.data. That's going to be the array of stores. And let's just console log the HTML for each of those. So watch what happens now when I search for coffee. What comes back is a list of stores, response.data. We pass that into search results HTML. And then from that, we get an array of 3 pieces of HTML, each with a link and a strong tag inside of it. But we don't want an array. We just want one big chunk of HTML. So I can call .join on the end here, and that is going to give us, there we go, nice actual HTML, one string rather than an array of 3 strings. Good. At this point, we just take our search results and we set the inner HTML to be the HTML that we had there. Or what you can do is you can just take this function here and set the result to be that right away. It's not necessary to put in a variable if you're just doing it in one line. Now, if I search for coffee, COFFEE, and as soon as I hit coffee, we're generating that HTML and having it replaced. Now, there also is a bit of a problem now. If I were to backspace, it's not finding anything, but it's not actually removing anything. So what we want to do is at the top of this, where we did search results.style.display.block, we could do search results.inner HTML is equal to nothing, and that will blow it away if there is nothing to actually show. So here we go, COFFEE, there we go. And then if I remove the extra E, it's not finding anything, so it's going to remove it entirely for us. Good. Last thing we need to do here is a catch the error. And if there is an error, you need to handle it accordingly. So that's up to you what you want to do with that specific error. You can just console.error, the actual error, and send it off to yourself. Or if you have something like Sentry set up, the error will go off to your Sentry support. Good. So let's try it one more time. Make sure it's working. Very good. Now there's a couple other things that we need in order to actually handle the changing over to it, because I can search for coffee and I can manually click on one of them, and that's going to bring me to that specific store. Good. Let's try it one more time. If I search COFFEE, we see all of them. If I were to click on one of them, like Mulberry Coffee, we should go to the, we don't go to the store. I think that's because I screwed up the URL. Singular stores, not multiple stores. So let's try that once more. FFEE, click on Rust City Brewery, and it actually brings me to the page specifically for Rust City Brewery. Search for it again. Search for Donut Monster. It will get me to that page. Good. So I can click on them, but how do I also use my keys in order to have a nice keyboard shortcut so I can use it up and down? Well, let's go. We're still inside of our main type ahead function right here. We'll say handle keyboard inputs. So I search input dot on key up. And when that happens, we're going to take the event and let's just console log the event.key code. And that should tell us which key code we are pressing. So we search for COFFEE. And then I down is 40. Up is 38. And enter is 13. So really all we care about is 38, 40, and 13. So what we can do here is we'll say if they aren't pressing up, down, or enter, who cares? Well, we'll skip it. We'll say if the array, and this is kind of a cool way to do it, it will say we're looking for 38, 40, or 13. If that doesn't include the event.keycode, then we'll simply just return nah. Otherwise, we're going to console log do something. So if we do not have 38, 40, or 13, then just skip this one. We'll say skip it. Otherwise, we're going to console log do something. So let's try it again now. COFFEE, nothing, but I hit down, do something, up, do something, and I can hit enter, a third, do something. Good. Otherwise, all the other keys are doing absolutely nothing for us, so we don't really care. Becomes a little bit of a complicated part because if we go to the answer here and I'm searching for coffee, you notice I can hit down and up, and if I hit the bottom and I hit down, it will cycle to the top. And if I hit up on the first one, it will cycle to the last one, and it will allow you just to sort of move your selected cursor throughout all of them. So if you want a little bit of challenge, pause and try to come up with the actual JavaScript, front-end JavaScript to handle this. Otherwise, I'll go through it now with you. So the first thing that we need is a active class that is going to mark each one as active, right? If I were to inspect this sucker here and I were to move up and down, you see how I'm removing and adding the class of search result active. I'm just going to keep that search __ result -- active. I'm going to keep that in a variable here. So we'll go here and we'll say const active class is equal to, and that is going to be search __ result -- active. Then we need the current. Every single time that we press down, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be finding the current one. And the way they're going to do that is we're just going to find which one has that current class. So say const current is equal to search.query selector. And we're going to be looking for something with the class. Actually, we need backticks here. Something with the class of active class. And the only reason I'm putting it in a variable here is because I don't feel like writing this thing over and over again. I'd rather just put it in a variable and reference the variable active class over and over. Then we will take a list of all of the items. So const items is equal to search.query selector all, because we want a node list to come back. We're going to look for all the search results. Search __ result. Then finally, we need a let variable called next. And the reason that is a let and not a const is because we are going to be updating it. Essentially how it's going to work is that we're going to figure out what are we currently on, and if someone presses down or up, which one is going to be the next one. So first thing we want to do is say if they press down and there is one selected, we want to set next to be the one after it. So like if I'm on Mulberry and I press down, I want the next one to be Rust City Brewery. So say if the event.keycode is equal to 40, meaning that they pressed down, and there is a current one already because they've already selected one, Then the next one is going to be the current one dot next element sibling, or it's just going to be the first one in the actual row. And what that will do is if I'm on the last one, there's obviously no next element sibling because I'm on the last one. And what this or will do is it will fall back to the first item in our array. Then we have an else if e.key code is equal to 40. Then what we say is next is equal to items 0. So if they press down and there is no current, so it's the first time, let me refresh this page. I hit coffee and there's no current one because I haven't selected any yet, and I press down. Now, in that case, the key code was down, so the next one has to be the first one so far. Next up, we have else if the event.key code is equal to 38 and there is a current. So this is kind of the opposite. So if someone is pressing, what did we say the up was? Key code.info. So if someone is pressing up, which is 38, down, which is 40, and there is a current one, we say next is equal to the current dot previous element sibling, or the last thing in the items. So here, if I'm coffee and I press up, then it should select the last one. So we're going to say items.length minus 1, items, square bracket items.length minus 1. And that's a little trick that we can use to get the last element on there. Then we say else if the event.key code is equal to 38. So if it's just equal to 38, the next is going to be equal to the items, the last one in the list, items.length minus 1. Finally, we need to handle the enter key. So we'll say else if the e.key code is equal to 13 and there is a current.ref, meaning that if someone hit enter and there is a current element with a ref value on it, then we need to put them on that actual page. So say window.location is equal to current.ref. Whew. All right, so at this point, let's just console log next and see what we're dealing with after this huge if-else statement. I'm going to refresh here. I'm going to type in coffee. I'm going to open up my dev tools now, and I'm going to press down, 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 down. It's always undefined, so we have a bit of an error here. Let's double check. Oh, next equals item 0. Yeah, give that a refresh. Coffee, down. There we go. I push down, mulberry coffee. Press down again. It's always going to give me mulberry coffee because we're not adding the class. So down, down, down. If I hit up, it's going to give me donut monster because that's the last one in there. Good. So what we want to do now that we have next, we want to add an active class to our next one. So the next.class list.add the active class. Let's see what we're doing here. So coffee, down, mulberry, down, Rust City, down. Oh, we're kind of stuck here. We have 2, and now all 3 have the class of active. Well, before we add a class of active to that next one, we need to remove it from the current one. So we'll say if there is a current one, then we will simply take the current and take the class list, and we will remove the active class. So if we currently have a current one, then just remove it from it. Coffee, down, there we go. Down, down, up, 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 down, down, down. Good. It seems to be cycling just fine. Now, if I hit enter on Rust City Brewery, oh, cannot read property class list of undefined. Oh, and that's because if you do hit enter, we need to stop this function from running. So we type return. So we'll type coffee, down, down, Rust City Brewery. I'm going to hit enter. Doesn't seem to have worked. Let's do a quick console log in here and debug it. Changing pages and console log current. See what that does. Coffee, enter. It says changing pages. It gives us the current Rust City Brewery. Oh, what am I doing with these triple equals? It's the only one equals. You're probably yelling at me, being like, what a fool. How does this guy have a course? Doesn't even know how equals works. Hit enter. There we go. Then it will actually change the page because you have to know how JavaScript works before we get into that. So delete those 2 console logs. Now we have all of this stuff working beautifully for us. I know that's quite a bit of code, but it's kind of neat to take a break from the server side stuff and just work with a little bit more of this interfacey stuff that requires us to have keyboard input as well as clicking. So that is our layout there. One thing I did notice is that I used a traditional require here, and everywhere else through our front end JavaScript, we use our ES6 import. And the reason why that still worked is because we're using Webpack to convert to CommonJS first, and then it gets compiled for us. So instead of requiring Axios, we want to say import Axios from Axios, and then that will do exactly the same thing, but we're just keeping it consistent with ES6 on our front end. And then on the server side, we're still using CommonJS modules just because we do not have ES6 modules in Node just yet. You can compile them, but it's more of a headache than it's worth because it's just syntax at the end of the day. So we've got this up and running. Let's double check that this works. Coffee. There we go. One other thing is that on the answer, when you don't find something, it tells you no results for the word found. And that's probably better than what we're doing, which is just hiding it, because then your user's trying to do stuff and nothing is happening, right? So what did we do? If there is no value, quit it. But at this point, we say if there is some stuff that comes back. And at this point right here, what we want to do is rather than clear out the inner HTML, what we want to do is we will have an else here, or we will just return from this and not have an else, just on its own line here. And we'll say, tell them nothing came back, which means that the result.data came back, but there was no length to it because there were no results. So at that point, what we'll do is we'll take our search results.inner HTML and we'll set it to use some backticks. We will take a div with a class of search __ result. And then inside of that, we say no results for, and we can interpolate the value, this dot value found. We'll see if that works. There we go. No results found. It will tell us exactly what has found. And then if we backspace it, will go away. Good. So those are a couple things. And last thing, I think that we're open to an XSS attack, a cross-site scripting attack right here. And the way that we can test that is if we are to log in real quick and we were to go to one of the stores that we had made with this account. And in this case, new store is the only one I've done. And let's change the new store to be an image tag. And the image tag can go to anything. I'm just going to copy this image. Source equals, doesn't matter what it's to. What's important is that there's an onload event with an image. And you can say alert, you got hacked. So let's see if this works. Save. So you see that immediately pops up because what we just did is we allowed somebody to put an image tag inside of their store name, which in most cases Jade will or Pug will take care of it for you. So let's look for new store. See, somebody can try and put an image and it won't actually load it. But when we are responsible for creating HTML ourselves, as we have done in our search results right here, if I search for new, look at this. As soon as I search for new, it says you got hacked. I press OK, and it actually brings the result with allowing us to have a store with a strong, and then the image tag is in here. We're taking advantage of the onload event in JavaScript, and at that point, anyone could load any JavaScript they could possibly want and actually ruin your website. So you need to be really careful. Before you actually embed any HTML on your page, you need to sanitize that data. And if you have looked at my ES6 course, I like to do this with a library called Purify. Go to the top here and we will import DOM Purify from DOM Purify. Now we have this thing called DOM Purify, and then anywhere you are setting HTML, so we are doing it right here, search results. We'll just wrap the entire search results in DOM Purify.sanitize. And then also we're doing it right here. Technically, someone could access this themselves by searching for something, and then it would set the inner HTML. We don't want that, so we'll DOM Purify.sanitize that. That'll save. Now when we refresh and you search for new, What that does is it still finds that huge image, but it doesn't. You can see that the onload event has been stripped out of the actual image that was in the URL. So, what you could also do at this point is use other libraries to strip out images, or even better, when somebody actually saves the data to your database, you could strip out the images as well. When how you do that is you go into your store model, store.js, and you would add yourself another schema pre-save. And this one we did for the slug, but then you could get another Node.js library that will strip any unnecessary HTML or any HTML from specific fields. So maybe you do want some HTML to be available in the description, but absolutely no HTML to be available in the title, then you would add yourself a new pre-save. So I'm not going to show you how to do that, but if you want to have a little bit of a challenge and to go into something right now, I definitely challenge you to actually implement that, throw it up on GitHub, and I'm sure other people in the course would love to see how you finish that. So that is our search results. Let's move on to doing some more stuff with the Ajax endpoints.